Welcome everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, Innovating Sales in a Virtual World, High Touch and High Tech Sales. I'm Jessica. If you guys don't know who I am, I'm the Trade Show and Event Manager for the Western Retail Lumber Association. I'm also here hosting today with Daryl, and I'm going to be your facilitator for any questions that you have going on. Just before I start off, I want to take a moment and look at some really beautiful photos that make me want to go on my patio and have a drink. But I want to thank our webinar sponsor today, Regal Ideas. Regal Ideas is the winner of the Best of IBS Award for Most Innovative Building Product at the International Builders Show. Regal Ideas continues to deliver a wide range of innovative products designed to make life easier for homeowners and contractors alike. Regal's Ideas is the world's leading manufacturer of aluminum railing systems and continues to be the industry leader on both sides of the border and across the globe. Regal Ideas is committed to building your business and has invested a significant amount of time and resources in getting their data, images, and content ready for the new online world of sales. Regal Ideas will work with your team, onboard you, and get you selling within hours online. So let's grow your market share together. And you can contact marketing at Regal Ideas for more. So before I introduce our speaker, I just want to let everyone know, as usual, you are muted. We can't hear you and we can't see you. You can see me and you can see Daryl. If you want to ask questions during, please use the chat function or the Q&A function below. I'll be monitoring that and we'll facilitate questions at the end with Daryl. Daryl, also, I think, are you hosting a LinkedIn chat afterwards, I think, too, right? A live LinkedIn chat?
Yes, if I can get it working.
Okay, if you can get it working, we're going to move over to LinkedIn. You can move over to LinkedIn afterwards.
We'll go over. I got 10 minutes slotted in for it.
Okay, great. Thank you. I just want to take a moment and welcome back Daryl Boyko from Boyko Innovations and Dominate Selling. The Dominate Selling workshops are the training arm of Boyko Innovations, a product and service representative agency founded in 2014. Boyko Innovations has partnered with Manitoba, national, and global companies for the past 6 years, I guess maybe 7, because this was from last year, so we're in year 7, to solve this one problem: too few customers, too few sales. Sales lead services, contract services, and private workshops have been the catalyst for new clients, new sales growth, and profitable business. Their work's been responsible for over $25 million of Manitoba export revenue through various companies, services, and products. The team is a key sales partner for notable Winnipeg companies and has helped secure relationships with world-class multinational Fortune 500 companies. All right, Daryl, I'm turning it over to you. I am in the background taking care.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, Western Retail Lumber Association. It's great to be with you. Jessica, thanks for having me back. And welcome to today's webinar. And we're going to cover in today's webinar 6 levels to high tech and high touch selling, which is a part of the innovation. I was working in a technical department about 15 years ago. And our technical team was Innovating Products, and we worked with a billion-dollar company out of Minneapolis. And the president of that company said there's a difference between innovating and inventing. Inventing is done in a lab, innovating is done in the marketplace, and you get paid for it. So that's today's topic, innovating sales, and we're going to cover 6 levels to high tech and high touch selling. I know this pandemic and the associated restrictions, business operation challenges have been frustrating, in some cases expensive. And so this webinar is timely, right? It's really timely. We're all going through this together. And in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to give you proven ideas, pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, and that will be applicable after. So they're ideas, principles, and tools that you can use to immediately connect with your existing customers, grow your revenue, and win new business. And you can do that all without burning through a ton of cash, without adding a ton of overhead or any overhead. You can do it without adding overhead, and do it in a way as a leader, a business leader, or a sales leader, or operations leader. You can do it in a way that you can feel confident and in control. So Jess read a little bit of my bio. Over the last 5 years specifically, I've been consulting with business leaders in the prairies. And the issue that came up time and time again is that they could not figure out why their sales team was failing to reach targets. And this is pre-pandemic, so still a challenge, same challenge that will always be there. How to do more with less, how to win new business. So pandemic or none, they were still plagued with that issue. And they couldn't reach their targets. They were burning through resources, time, money. It was inefficient. There was a lack of productivity. And all of that was a distraction from serving clients. Right? There's that rub. Do we serve existing clients? Do we go out and do we build our business and grow it? But we don't want to have a revolving door business where our existing clients are then going out the back door and so on and so forth. The cycle goes on. So they had brought me in to consult on how to plug those holes. And here's what I've learned in my 15 years of selling, 5 years consulting, 3 years of managing a small team that specializes in qualifying leads. And the one thing that I see over and over, here's what it is: pandemic or no pandemic. And the enemy of success and growing revenue is just a casual sales culture. It's just being too casual, whether it's in a pandemic or it's outside of pandemic. The biggest enemy to success that I've seen in all the case studies has been too casual a culture. Okay? And that's not always the leader's fault, but today you're going to become aware of it, and then you're going to have some choices to make about how you choose to move forward after today, right? As leaders, we always want to get to informed decision points and then make a decision to move forward. But those business organizations that I've seen, if it's too casual, if it's too formal, the business leaders struggle between they go back and forth between okay, we need to lock in all these high expectations, and then they go to no expectations, right? And then they don't manage because they don't want to be overbearing, but then they micromanage, and then they become overbearing, and it's back and forth to these extremes, and it's like they're always in one of these two ditches on the side of a road, on either side of a highway. And as you know, if you're driving, we're in Western Canada here, and there's lots of highway, lots of road to drive, and there's lots of ditches. Matter of fact, there's two ditches for every mile of road. If you're driving in a ditch, it's going to take you more resources. It's going to take you more time. It's going to be less efficient than if you're on the highway. And my goal today is to get you on the super highway today, right? To give you the tools to get on the super highway. And optimize your resources, right? And get to your destination on time or earlier. And we're going to talk about that today. Let me give you 3 examples. Here's some real live case studies. One example is of a truck body manufacturer who had one outside salesperson. And they had about $3 million of business coming in. And 80% of that $3 million was done through one customer. And this salesperson managed that one customer. And the ownership was always in fear of upsetting that salesperson, because they were always in fear of losing the client, because they never got it. They never got the client. They didn't know how to do it. And they relied on the salesperson. They didn't have the internal practices to do it. And when they wanted to grow the business, there were always excuses on why, the salesperson would always have excuses on why they couldn't go out and grow the business and see new people and prospect and make new phone calls and interact, go to networking events, be seen. There was always excuse, and there was never any expectation made to the salesperson for fear that they were going to lose. And that business stayed at the $3 million mark for years and years and years, because there was never any new growth. It was just one client, the majority of the business. Okay, very unhealthy dynamic, very toxic environment, and just not a good company culture. So example number 2 is of a contract fabricator who
Daryl,
had.
I'm going to interrupt you. You're not sharing your screen. I'm not sure if you're trying to share your screen, but we don't see it yet.
Well, thanks for
Storytelling
interrupting.
was excellent. I just wanted to stop you there and say.
Well, if you got the storytelling without the slides, wait till you get the slides. Here we go. Thanks, Jess. And action.
Nope, nothing yet.
How's that?
Nope. Oh, there we are.
Boom.
Awesome. We're good.
All right. Example number 2 is of a contract fabricator who had one inside salesperson. And this contract fabricator, they had great leadership. The people were great, and the operations team was fantastic. But from a sales side, they were just flatlined. They couldn't get the next big client, right? They operated on getting key account clients, anchoring in their revenue, getting consistent revenue in there, and they just couldn't break no results, break through. And so they let the salesperson go, they're just based on qualitative results, based on lagging indicators, no sales. Right, that's how they rolled, and so they let him go, and that was unfortunate for the company. And then finally, the third example is of a packaging and printing company. They had an opportunity to expand internationally, but they had a small window to do this, a small window to produce results. And if they were going to do it, they had to be confident that they were going to achieve their goal, because it was basically in under a 6-month time period, they were going to burn $20,000 in travel expenses, because they were going to build a greenfield territory internationally. So they had to know the ROI. They had to execute this flawlessly and ensure they were going to get results. Otherwise they were going to be out paying for and this was a mid-market company. It's about a $20 million company, but they had travel expenses, no existing clients. They would be in a position where they could potentially have to downsize, because they needed this break. They needed this new territory. The existing market they were in Canada was already saturated. Okay, so these are 3 examples of just a casual, poor, unhealthy sales culture. And there's a risk with growth, right? Let's we're all adults in the room. Let's call it like there's a risk with growth. And the question that I ask is, how do we mitigate that risk, right? Especially during a pandemic, especially where we've been forced to change how we interact with clients and prospects. So how do we mitigate the risk of growth? We're going to come back to these examples in about 30 minutes, and I'll tell you how these stories end here. But a casual sales environment is going to cost you more than just sales. Right? A casual sales environment is going to cost you more than sales. You're going to, in addition to lost opportunities, there's the hidden costs that just erode your bottom line, right? The inefficiencies, the lack of productivity. It's like death by 1,000 paper cuts. And before we move on, let's take some stock. Let's look at our own situation here. I'm going to run through 8 characteristics of a healthy sales culture. Okay. And let's see, and I'll explain these here, and we'll run a poll here with Jess. Number 1 characteristic of a healthy sales culture: you miss your targets by less than 10% consistently. Okay, so hey, at the end of the day, we're all looking to increase sales. You're looking to increase sales, and you want to be consistently hitting your targets, not just for revenue, but for morale, for the company culture. So you miss your targets by less than 10% consistently. You know how much it costs you to acquire a new customer. Okay. You know how much it costs you to acquire a new customer. You know quantitatively how long your selling cycle is. So in addition to the cost of acquiring a new customer, how long from lead development to closing a deal and receiving revenue, what is that length of time? You know this. You have company standards and your expectations are clear. Okay. Best case scenario, it's documented in a playbook. That's a characteristic of a healthy culture. You document all your best sales practices. So there's people on the team that absolutely kick butt, but there's people on the team that do good work, and you want the rest of your team selling that way. You want your rest of your team interacting with customers in a certain way, and these best practices are captured. You have a sales rep onboarding plan, and guess what? It's all documented, right? So what does that mean? That means that the reps that come on your team have a short speed to revenue, right? Sorry, fast speed to revenue, short time to revenue. So within 90 days, you can get them producing and they're productive. Your team has a formal problem-solving process. You're not going to have all the answers as the leader. And you shouldn't have all the answers. Your team, though, is face-to-face with customers and prospects on a daily basis. And if they're engaged in the marketplace, there's going to be roadblocks that hold them back. Your responsibility as leaders to remove those roadblocks. Their responsibility is to help you solve the problems, right? And there's a great book. We'll talk about that later on here. And lastly, you document the activities and habits from the best salespeople. You're going to have great salespeople. If you're coming from an informal sales culture, you're going to have salespeople that don't want to change. And it's hard to get them to change. So what do you do instead? You capture, you include, you get them to participate in the knowledge transfer of what's causing them to be so successful. And you document it. And then you share it with the team so everyone can benefit. But this needs to be a formal process. There needs to be a formal process to do it. So Jess, let's run a quick poll. How many of these characteristics, everyone on this webinar, how many of these characteristics do you identify with? Okay, go through the characteristics again. How many are in play in your organization right now? How many do you identify with? Good, you got some 4 to 6, and this is all confidential. We don't see who's any names here. Okay, 4 to 6, 0 to 3. Okay, and this isn't how many of these have you thought about doing. This is how many are executed in your organization. How many of these characteristics are a part of your culture? Okay. I will run, 10 more seconds, Jess?
Oh, sorry, I stopped it where I
did you? Okay.
Yeah, there you are. The results should be up.
Okay, so here are the results. So I'll let you know what these results mean. And if everybody can see that, we basically split half and half. Half of the group here today identifies with 4 to 6 of these characteristics. Half of the group identifies with 0 to 3. Okay, none identify with 7 to more. If you have 7 or more of these characteristics operating in your organization, you are running a lean organization, and you've got low stress levels, right? As far as working with your team, and you've got a very healthy, productive, progressive culture. If you identify with 4 to 6 of these characteristics, you've got a good thing going on. And with some tweaks, you can notch it up to the 7 or more, and really get your business humming and get some consistent productivity from your team and results. If you're at 0 to 3, you're likely feeling overwhelmed, maybe don't even know where to start, and add a pandemic to it, add virtual tools to it, it's all super overwhelming. But it is what it is, right? Some people hate that saying, some people don't, but it is. We need to take stock and understand where we're at. So thank you for participating in that poll. So knowing where we at, where we're at right now, if you do, this is a quote from Albert Einstein, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got, right? So at some point, we've got to make a choice to do something different. Well, do different, what do you mean do different? Darryl, what do you mean do what different? Well, how do we win clients? How do we service clients, especially in a virtual world? All right. And we don't have a lot of time to do it. Okay. One thing I want to emphasize before we get into the meat and potatoes here is that time is running out. You don't have the luxury of time to figure this out next year, right? It doesn't take overhead to figure out. It does not require the pandemic to be over for you to figure this out. It doesn't have to be overly complicated or expensive, but you do need to make a decision that, you know what, I'm going to put a plan together and I'm going to start moving my team into a formal process. I'm going to start building a company culture of excellence within our sales operations and get predictable, repeatable results. Okay. So before we get into it, I just want everybody to know you do not have time to sit on this. Time to do and to make things happen is now. Okay, so six steps to high tech and high touch selling. Number one is you want to find leads. Okay, and by the way, throughout these 6 steps, I'm going to weave in different technology tools that I've seen work both in my business and my clients' business throughout the pandemic, and I'm not going to share specific. Well, Jess, do you want me to share specific names on the recording, or do you want me to send those after?
Whatever you're comfortable with time at, maybe we can send them. We can follow up, send them out afterwards too.
Okay.
This
Great.
is being recorded, so they'll have access to this as well.
Okay, perfect. All right. So step number one, you got to find the leads, right? How do we do it? How do you find leads quickly so you can move through to growing your business through the pandemic? Well, number one, we don't have to do it all ourselves. There's different resources that you can use to outsource lead development. You might want to, I'll throw out some names for you. You might want to look at contracting agency called People Per Hour. Fiverr is a great contracting agency, and you simply put your specifications of the leads that you're looking for, specify that you're looking for verified leads, okay, and do small tests. Don't negotiate over big, sums of money, $500, $1,000, whatever you have allocated for leads. Do a $25 test to find out how good a quality these leads are. But you want to find leads to your sales process. High tech or high touch is like gas to your car. You gotta always have new leads coming in the door, and you need to leverage that and not do that all yourself, and not put that on your sales team to do. That'd be my recommendation. Leads is like a marketing function, and so often I see a big error made is that we put it on the salespeople to develop those leads or to find those leads, and that takes away from customer facing selling time. Okay, so it's all about maximizing the productivity of your sales team and your salespeople. That's overhead, right? So we want to get good productivity out of it. Outsource lead development. Okay, so you can buy inexpensive verified lists and develop a marketing funnel. A marketing funnel is simply a technology platform that captures emails. What is there? There's MailChimp. The one I like the best is Keep, right? It's interactive. You can set up different campaigns to interact with your customers, okay? To interact with your customers and prospects. So when you're prospecting, you're like starting the dating process. If we use that as an analogy. And you don't you don't ask the person that you're trying to date to marry you, okay? For lack of a better example. You need to nurture that. And the best way to do it is by developing a marketing funnel. So Keep Infusionsoft is a great technology tool. They've got great support, which helps you build your campaigns. And what that does is it takes the pressure off of your salespeople. It allows your marketing team or someone in operations, or if you assign it to your salespeople, to keep in touch with prospects to let them know you're still there without taking valuable selling time away from your salespeople. Okay, so developing your marketing funnel. Step number 2 is to qualify your leads. You want to build proper prospecting communication. So what do I mean by that is that you're not necessarily in an outreach going to reach out to someone the first time and have them respond to you. They're not going to return your email. They're not necessarily going to return your phone call, or your voicemail. So you need to have your entire prospecting communication mapped out. It's a roadmap. And I'll cover some areas that you need to consider in your roadmap here in a minute, but build out your prospecting communication. This is a little leadership checkbox. Do I have my prospecting communication mapped out? And if the answer is no, then this becomes an action item for you. Use dialing software for high volume outreaches. The one that I recommend is a software called Phone Burner. Okay, and what I like about Phone Burner is, number one, it keeps stats. Number two, it lets me know the productivity of the call. So I'll give you an example. Our team was calling for a global health and safety company. Obviously, with the pandemic, we're working with the company, and we were able to look at 350 calls that were made in a 2-day period of time. Okay, and out of those calls, 30% of people answered. 50% of the people that answered were decision makers, and half of the decision makers bought. Okay, those are stats that you want to have, and a dialing software helps you manage your statistical information and your quantitative information, so you can make intelligent decisions about what you need to do next. So yeah, ask yourself, do you keep track of phone calls, contacts, emails sent, as an example? And what's the relationship between that information and sales made? Okay, so let me slow down and say that again. I feel like I'm going fast, but we got a lot of information to cover. If you don't know the relationship that your salespeople have with activity and results, what happens is you get stuck in this insanity cycle of just looking for results to coach your team on. And that's crazy, because by the time you have results or no results, you could have made 15 small changes that would have helped your sales team get the results that you need. So that's the difference between leading indicators and lagging indicators. Leading indicators are all the activities we just talked about. Lagging indicators are the results that you're looking for. Okay? And maybe you know all this information, but maybe it's time now to implement this. This is what keeps the connection with your sales team going, so that they can connect with, and we're going to talk about ways to do that. Okay, but as a leader, you want to manage it at a high level without getting involved into the details. Okay, use a dialing software to manage these statistics and information. Okay, and lastly, for qualifying your leads, email, voicemail, live conversations, receptionist engagement, executive assistants, all of those conversations need to all be mapped out and prepared in advance, right? And your sales people need to practice those, because that's their landscape. Now, that's for B2B transactions. If you're in a retail environment, we can talk about how to tailor that up for retail experience. But here's what doesn't change. What doesn't change is that you still need to map it out. You still need to prepare it. You cannot leave it to chance. You have to direct your team in how they're going to lead the customer, or how they're going to lead prospects to become customers. If they're not doing that, if you're not leading them, your salespeople become order takers, right? And they're so focused on their products that by the time they get to the buying stage and they have objections, it becomes price. It becomes price, and it becomes price. Okay, we got to teach our salespeople how they lead customers through the buying process, not waiting to be led by the customers, just asking to buy. Okay, we've got to influence them. So you start influencing them by creating templates and by scripting every interaction. Okay, your salespeople aren't going to become robots. They're not going to robotically try to say everything on the script, but they do need to know where to take the conversation to. Okay. Step 3 is you need to have the presentations of how your salespeople find out your client's problems. Have it all scripted out. Find the impact of your client's issues. So many salespeople and organizations avoid pressing into their salespeople on this, is that they try to find out, well, what are you looking for, right? You come into a store, hi, what are you looking for? All right, that's easy. Well, why are they looking for it? Mr. and Mrs. Customer, what brings you in today? Okay, or if they're calling in because they're not able to come to the store, or if they're surfing and then they call in because they can't come into the store. Not just what they're looking for, but why is it important to you? Why is what you're looking for important to you? And hypothetically, what happens if you don't do anything different? You don't get the solution you're looking for. That's the impact. Okay? People, especially during the pandemic, are looking to survive. So you've got to understand what the pain is that they're going to experience if they don't find a solution, right? Your pressure or your salespeople's pressure does not promote buying. What promotes a purchase decision is urgency. So if you can find the impact of your client's issues, it creates what's called indirect pressure, and then your salespeople aren't pressuring. They're using the client's issues and the impact as influence to get a purchase decision now. So talk about the problems, goals, and objectives, all of them. Consider other stakeholders. If you're in a B2B situation, you might be talking to someone and there might be, you might be talking to the decision maker, but there's other stakeholders who use or interact with your product, service, or solution. You need to round robin the entire team and find out how what you sell impacts the team. Because when you present a solution, you need to present a holistic solution that benefits the whole team. Okay? And how do these issues impact achievement? Okay, so what happens if they accomplish what they're looking to accomplish? What does that mean to them? Why do you want to find that out? Because again, when you find out why it's important to them, that influences the decision, not your salesperson's pressure. Or if you're a salesperson, it's not your pressure, it's helping the client or customer achieve what they're looking for. But you got to know what they're looking for and why. Okay, that's step number 3. Step number 4 is solution proposal. Okay, now with again in a virtual world, we might be in a hybrid world right now, depending on what we're selling or what our solution is or what we normally offer to the marketplace. So however you propose solutions, there's a couple options you have here if you're doing it virtually or hybrid. Okay. But what doesn't change is you got to communicate the problem back to them. You have to remind your customers or your prospects the problems that they said they have. Find out if it's changed, but they have to understand what you're there to help them solve. Okay. Number 2 is you got to state the benefit of why what you're selling them, what it's going to do for them. Okay. So if I'm selling contract manufacturing services, I'm not just selling capacity. I'm selling a solution to rising costs of a commodity market right now and the pressures that are associated with that. So there's a benefit to it. There's cost reduction. There's being able to achieve cost saving targets. right? There's a benefit behind the thing that I'm selling, the thing that you're selling, and you have to clearly state it so they can understand it. All right. And then you have to mitigate failure. Nothing's perfect. Taking a solution, so how does a retail store mitigate failure? 100% money back guarantee, right? Maybe have installation services. If you're a B2B, if you're selling B2B, how do you mitigate failure? You might have bi-weekly onboarding collaboration calls to make sure if something's off, it gets fixed right away. Okay. But you have to communicate how you're also going to mitigate failure so they can reduce the risk in their own mind. Now, if you're doing this in a virtual world, there's tools you can do. One of my favorite tools that I recommend to all my clients is a platform called Loom. And Loom allows you to go through points on a document while speaking in a corner with your face, so it gives you a personal touch to what would just be an email normally, right? Or would just be a document that would be read very linear. So it gives you some interaction. It allows your sales team to record these presentations on non-selling time, so they can maximize their conversation with prospects and customers. Okay. And it allows you to know when and be notified when it's been open for better follow back time. All right. One principle, though, when you're leaving, is that you always book a meeting from a meeting. If you're going to present a solution and you're going to do it through a video platform like Loom, or you're going to do a video recording, or you're going to send an email, however you do it, set a time up before you do that to follow back up. Okay. That should be a best practice. Have your team, because you shouldn't be waiting. You shouldn't be waiting for decision points, right? That extends the customer acquisition time, and it's wasted resources. Okay. If a customer, a B2B customer, is adamant, or you're in a retail hybrid situation and they're just not going to make a decision, then what you do is you come back and say, hypothetically, if we don't hear back from you at this time, can we follow back up? And then in the meantime, you can see if they've opened up any of the video sharing platform that you send them. In this case, Loom. Okay, but these three things for proposing solutions: make sure they remember the problem that they told you, and before you get into any solutions, you can course correct. You state the benefits, not just the thing that you're selling, and your sales team does this, and you mitigate failure. Everybody's trying to conserve resources, and if you can show people how to mitigate failure, they feel less like it's a risk to choose to go with you. Okay, step 4, close the deal. Always negotiate a win-win deal, right? Always win-win. And it's not hard to negotiate when you're always looking for win-win. Okay. Use what I call AVIS acronym to overcome objections, right? Acknowledge and their position, their objection, validate that it's a valid objection. So let me go through this as an example. So if someone objected saying, hey, you know what, it's too expensive, I might, so I'm going to acknowledge it. I'm going to say, I understand that the price is a challenge here. I totally understand that. And it's valid, right? It's a valid objection. If, right, if we could, right, solve this, right, would you be open to moving forward at a certain price? So I'm going to acknowledge, I'm going to validate, I'm going to isolate, right? Is there anything else? And then I'm going to give them a hypothetical solution, right? So hypothetically, what does the price need to be? Hypothetically, if we can meet halfway, however you negotiate, but this is a proven acronym for acknowledging, for validating your customer or your prospect's position, isolating to make sure that there's no other issues that need to be solved. Last thing that you want to do is have your sales team solve the issue, and then the customer or prospect comes back and says, yeah, well, but there's something else. Right? So you ask them, if we could solve this, is there anything else? Right? And you isolate that it's the only issue, and then you give them a solution. So you don't even have to guarantee your team. As sales leaders, you want to empower your team to solve things. So how do you do that when you don't know all the conversations that they're having? Just empower them to solve it. If you're in front of the customer, if your sales team's in front of the customer, just have them say, hypothetically, if I can do this, would you give us a shot? Right? And your sales team doesn't have to guarantee anything, but they can find out what it's going to take to get the deal done. Okay. So quick review, again, acknowledge, validate the position, isolate, make sure there's no other objections, and then solve the problem. And then ask for the business. Ask for the business. If you're in a retail environment and you go through this process, you can, it's as simple as just asking, saying, is there anything else you'd like in addition to this? Does this work for you? Can I ring this through for you? If you're in a B2B selling environment, one of the a great close that I always recommend is you say, here's 3 steps that we need to take. If you sign the agreement, we'll get you onboarded, and we'll take care of the details from there. Right? If you like what we've talked about, let's get going, and we'll take care of the details. Is there anything stopping you from moving forward? Those are all different types of close. But here's the point. Whatever you say, find out what's working with your team, document it, and then continue to do it over and over. But you got to ask for the business. Okay, be really clear. Okay, number 6, and here's the missing step, right? Everybody wants to stop at closing the deal. We win. Yeah, we win. No, here's how. It doesn't matter if you're high tech. It doesn't matter if it's pandemic. It doesn't matter if it's post-pandemic. Here's what doesn't change. You have to be obsessed with your customer's success. So what does that mean? This is the win here. You got to onboard your clients. Okay, you have to take them through an onboarding. Even if they're checking out and you say to them, listen, let us know, right? It might not be realistic for you to connect with every retail customer that comes through, but have your sales team or your retail sales team let the customer that just bought know, hey, let us know how it works for you, right? Let us know if you got the result. I'm confident you will. Let us know that it happened. So onboarding your clients could be as simple as that. In a retail situation. If you're in a B2B situation, you might have a formal plan for 30 days of onboarding your clients. Okay. Don't be like, some realtors, as soon as, the deal's tied up, you don't hear from them again. No, you got to think about the fact that the next sale is always less expensive from a good referral. So don't drop the ball here. Don't have your team drop the ball. Onboard them. Be accountable to their success. If you're dealing in large accounts, have a formal quarterly review, definitely an annual review, and look at all the areas they said they needed wins in and score yourself and just be honest. Be accountable to them. You'll win more deals and more repeat business, even if you weren't perfect, because you've built a team that's accountable to the customer's success. Find out, not a survey, not how did we do. No. Did you get the results that we suspected that we could help you get? Did you get those? And sometimes you're going to fail, and sometimes you're going to win. Okay, but don't be afraid of that. Don't create an environment where people can't fail. You win or you learn. I won't go into all the neuroscience and all the studies that have been done. But to create a winning sales team and a winning environment, it has to be no blame, right? So you win or you learn. You win you keep those as best practices. Okay. If you don't get the goal, if you fall short, if you fail, what did we learn from it? What can we do different next time? Okay. All right, I'm gonna blow through these because I can see, man, time just goes by so fast. I promised you guys that I would share with you some tips to doing some virtual tours, some things that you don't have to learn through trial and error. I'll give you a roadmap right here that will help you avoid making expensive and avoidable mistakes. So if you're using virtual tours to connect and differentiate your brand, you're investing a little bit more into your clients. You're investing a little bit more into your prospects, and they notice that. I know it's hard when we're concerned about resources, but it's worth the investment. Okay, step one, you got to plan for it ahead of time. Don't just show up with a phone and a headset and trying to take your clients or prospects through it. Set an agenda ahead of time. Oh my gosh, I just launched Zoom unintentionally, or Loom unintentionally. Set an agenda ahead of time. Make sure you know and your clients know what the expectations are, or your prospects know what the expectations are. Even if it's a retail client, if you're going to take them through a tour, let them know we're going to do A, B, C, and done. Set an agenda. Run full prior to the actual event. So do it full, a full dress rehearsal, whatever you want to call it, a full run through. Just do it before. Don't practice on your prospects. Don't practice on your customers. Run it through the hand and plan to record it so that you can share it. And any stakeholders or decision makers that don't show up, they can get the information that they need after. And by the way, the fact that you do that and they share it will differentiate you. Okay. Maybe it's a retail situation and it's a joint decision between two partners. If one can't show up, the fact that you shared a video with them and they can share it with their partner, maybe they don't buy the thing that you thought you were showing them, but they buy something else. Okay. Because you took that extra effort. It's all about being generous with our time and resources for clients and prospects. You can't go wrong being generous. Number two is you set the tour. For step two, you set the tour. Okay. In this step of a tour, you have one person that manages audio, meaning they're not in the tour. Okay. They're actually in the Zoom room, for example. You've got one person who's actually on the tour walking with them, whether it's an operation facility or a retail store. You've got one person that's actually managing the video. And then you've got one person as a coordinator who's looking at their phone, and the audio person might say, we can't hear you. And then you've got to tell the person that's walking with the recorder, hey, can you speak up? Okay, whatever the case is, but have a coordinator and have these three people a part of the tour. All right, make it conversational. So what does that mean? Give some info, ask a question. Give some info, ask a question. Okay, what kind of question? Does this work for you? Is this helpful? Do you see how this could benefit you? These all need to be a part of your best practices for your sales team. And finish earlier than later. Okay, I'm going to see if I can do that here. Always give people the gift of time. Okay, and for the step for wrapping it up, determine the next day, date, and time to make a contact. Send thank you emails with that video and affirm the next step. And then finally, immediately have your sales team contact 5 prospects and offer to do a tour with them. Offer whatever those prospects might need based on where they're in their sales stage. But the best time to make a sale is when you just made a sale. Well, Daryl, what are you talking about? We were just talking about a stage in the sale. Yeah, but all a sale is closing the next step, right? And if you did a tour and you completed it, your sales team should feel good about that and go out and contact 5 new prospects and create some new momentum. Don't just rest on that good tour that was done. Okay, so let's see here. 3 examples. Okay, we talked about that truck body manufacturer with one outside salesperson. Well, when They put together their formal selling system in 2 years. They replaced that major client with new business of worth over $3 million. Completely replaced the business, and it was good news because it was about 4 years ago that that client ended up drying up and only being 10% of their business. So in essence, they would have been wiped out had they not made the changes earlier before they needed them, rather than waiting to see what would happen. Okay. Number two, that contract fabricator with only inside salespeople, in 3 years, they acquired 3 Fortune 500 clients. And today, doing millions of dollars with these clients, with growth potential, strong collaboration, and they were able to solve the issues that they had with the sales team at the time. And number three, that packaging and printing company ended up within 5 months building a new international territory, produced 500,000 in revenue in the first 6 months. Obviously, able justify the expense, and we're able to continue to build the territory and grow the company. All right, so listen, though there was a win, right? And these companies were able to win because they put together a system. They put together a formal selling system that helped them unify their team, to help them. What's the word I'm looking for? Retain the best practices of what was working, and manage as a leader, being able to manage the leading and lagging indicators, so they were able to make changes and not just focus on the sales. They were able to work with their team as they needed to make changes within the processes that we talked about. I'm just doing a quick promo because if anyone would like to deep dive into getting the framework for their selling system, we're going to be hosting and putting on Establish Your System on June 14th. And it'll be a one-day event. And we'll cover from A to Z all the frameworks that need to be included in your system. There's going to be templates, and if you register before Thursday, we're going to include some bonus prospecting templates in there that you can give to your salespeople. They'll have to, fine tune it, but it'll get them off and going, and save some time in some of the development. But that's it. 6 levels to high tech and high touch selling, regardless of being in a pandemic or coming out on the other side. What's most important though is we keep the main thing, and that's people, right? And it's not just high tech. It's not just a virtual world. It's high touch with high tech. And that's what's going to allow you to continue to grow your business, survive, and overachieve your targets. So with that, Jess, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And thank you again to Regal Ideas for sponsoring today's webinar. We do have some questions from people that are here today. Our first one is from Eric. And the question is, what do you recommend as a healthy target setting process? There's obviously a balance between setting aggressive targets and setting realistic targets.
Great question, Eric. What I recommend is if you have a year over year result to compare to, obviously increasing that, by 50% and doing a little bit of a stress test. You're right. There's a difference in being too aggressive, but you do want to get those creative juices flowing. There does need to be a sense of urgency. And I'd recommend that you err on the side of being more aggressive than less aggressive. Here's what studies show. If someone believes they have a 50% chance of achieving the goal, they'll be motivated. If it's less than 50% chance, it's defeating. If they believe they can make it, happen within a month, it's not going to be motivating. So how I'd answer that is take that information and maybe do some stress tests and find out from your salesperson or your sales team, what do they think they can do, right? And start there. to see where, and ask them, because maybe they think they can do more than you're gonna recommend to them. So find out what they think, and then don't be afraid to go a little bit aggressive. You do want to challenge them.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, I hope that answers your question, Eric. Just a reminder, use the Q&A or the chat function below to type in your question. I have another one on the chat from Faye with regards to your comments around dialing software. What's the difference between B2B and B2C dialing software? Because most consumers don't like cold calls.
Yeah, so there, as far as I know, Faye, there's no B2C dialing software, right? Because of privacy laws, and that's all locked up. B2B, there can be, from a phone call perspective. When obviously when it comes to email, someone needs to opt in. Otherwise, it's considered spam. So you asked what's the difference between the two. B2B is legal, B2C is illegal.
It's a good explanation. Thank you. So I wanted
Last
to go
time I
back
heard.
to one of your things where you talked about high performance teams, and you said sort of the death of these teams is a casual sales environment,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah.
So with the pandemic, with working from home, how can leaders who are leading teams create structure where they can still be successful and not fall into, well, you're at home, you're in sweatpants, you've got the TV on in the background. How do you create those environments?
Yeah, it's all about, great question. It's all about creating routines and building on them. But you got to start with the baseline. So hey, let me give you an example. When each month, what do? We look at what did we spend our money on last month, right? According to our budget, and then what's our plan or our budget for the following month. And we need to do the same with time. So time isn't unlimited, right? It's the only thing that none of us can just reproduce. So we need to be accountable for time. Our teams, home or not, need to be accountable for times. And specifically for a sales team, we need to be accountable to the people that we're reporting to on the time that we're using. It's only when you're accountable can I, as the leader, look and say, hey, you know what do you think we need to do different? Well, here's what I recommend. Why don't you try that? Right? You can't coach anybody if you don't know where they're at. So I get it. It feels like micromanaging. It feels uncomfortable to ask someone to be accountable for the time, but you can't afford ambiguity. You can't afford being casual. You have to be diligent and have your whole team be accountable for the time. Doesn't mean you have to use all the time, but you got to be accountable for it so you can make changes and achieve your goals before the time's up for this year.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I have another question here. This is more of an opinion question. Do you think we're going to give up virtual sales once we can start meeting face to face again? Or is this something that we should, as salespeople, be looking at incorporating ongoing? It's just, I mean, obviously there's Zoom fatigue or being fatigued with
Sure.
the face to face, but do you think that it is something that can be incorporated for sales in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Absolutely can be incorporated. Hey, look, here's the reality. Every business has contingency plans, or none of us should be caught, without a contingency plan, especially after going through this all, right? What do they say? If it happens once, shame on you. If it happens twice, shame on me, right? So we all need to be prepared for, continuing to operate virtually. No different. Hey, if virtual selling is a tool, right? No different than with my kids. I built their play structure. I purchased some tools that I didn't have around the house, right? I didn't have in the garage. And as soon as the play structure was built, I didn't throw those tools out because I didn't need them anymore. I have them available should I need them in the future, right? And that's why capturing all the best practices of virtual selling is going to benefit you as a business owner, having contingency plans should you decide to move back to away from a hybrid and strictly high touch.
Mhm.
Should you do a hybrid, or should you have to in the future go to high touch selling? You have your own playbook, your own framework that you developed through the situations that we're going through right now. So yeah. Are we going
Okay.
to do it? It's up to you as a business owner,
Yes.
but 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 have the tools available for you in the future.
Great. So this question is a follow-up to that one. Someone's just asked, do you believe we should be measuring face-to-face and virtual differently? When virtual, I guess, could take less time versus face-to-face. You have to drive, you have to go, you have to make appointments. If someone's not there or cold calling, do you think should be measured differently, or is there a way? Are they just equally given equal weight?
The measurement, yeah. Well, the measurement is all based on what are the milestones to go from a lead all the way to a customer, right? Or if it's
Hmm.
a returning customer, the repeat business. So whether it's high tech or high touch, in person or virtual, it's the steps that you're measuring. And if you measure the steps, you might see the data might tell you something different. You might be longer in your sales cycle but lowering your costs for virtual, right?
Yes.
For in
Yeah.
person, you might be higher. You might have longer sales. You might have a shorter sales cycle because of that relationship,
Yeah.
but higher costs. And then you, as a business owner, need to decide, well, this upcoming year, what do we want to improve? Do we want to improve margins by getting our costs of sales lower? Right? Or so those, you use the data to inform you so you can make decisions and set targets.
That's great. That's a really great point. So we do have one more question
Yeah.
here. How do you make a good first impression with your customer when it's virtual?
Great question. So virtual, I'm going to, if it's a customer, you have that relationship already. I'm going to assume you mean prospect.
You know
And
what? They didn't clarify. Sorry.
okay,
Yeah, I'll see if they do that.
yeah. So I'll assume prospect. If
Hmm.
it's a prospect, how do you make a good first impression? Given what we're going through right now, slow it down.
Okay.
Right, slow things down. Be real human, right, and understand that they've got stuff going on. Okay, but don't be apologetic about reaching out to them. I know I'm kind of being vague, but I want to give you principles because you can use the principles in any situation, right? Whereas you're
Hmm.
trying to take one hammer and everything's a nail, right? So
Hmm.
just be human, slow down, understand that they've got stuff going on and they stopped. So thank them for their time. You want to make a good first impression. Don't ask them how they're doing if you don't care, but thank them for their time. Thanks for picking up the phone. Thanks for making the time to speak. Okay. And just show respect, especially with everything that's going on right now, even more so. Right.
That's a really great point. I think there is sort of that fear of calling people because everyone is so, depending on where you're at, people can be very stressed out and you don't want to
Yeah.
bother people, but you still want
Yeah.
to help them achieve their achieve things. So that's a really great point. I don't know. I think that's all the questions we have. I'm just going to say, if anybody has any more, just type them below in the chat or the Q&A. You said you were going to mention a book that you were going to recommend, and I know one of the
Yeah.
people on the call today likes books, so we'd like to hear
Yeah.
what your recommendations are.
Absolutely. I think this I had kind of given the teaser around this whole idea of delegating to your team, right? Not micromanaging, but just kind
Hmm.
of being in control. There's a book. It's in the Ken Blanchard leadership series. It's called 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey, right? And it's really an empowering book as a manager because real quick, it's all about think about the problems that your sales team have, right? And they're all monkeys, right? And they want to come into your office or give you a phone call, and they want to put their monkey on you, meaning give you their problem to solve.
Hmm.
Well, that's fine, but you have other responsibilities than other salespeople. So if you take everyone's monkeys, you don't have time to take care of your own monkeys. People have to keep their own monkeys. Your salespeople should be solving their own problems with your guidance. They're the best sources of solution. And even if they don't have the perfect answer, they need to bring solutions to the table and execute it to be able to evaluate. Otherwise, they become really needy
Hmm.
and it becomes a really poorly performing sales team, right? If you've got a team, let me give you a quick analogy. If you're on the basketball court and you're playing basketball or for any sport, and you're looking at the coach every time to tell them, hey, that person just set a screen, coach. That's really inefficient. Your team has to move at the speed of business. So
Mhm.
they need to do something, and then whether it's right or wrong, either evaluate it and do something different next time,
Mhm.
or highlight it as it worked and now they put it in their arsenal, but not give that monkey to you. And that book, 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey, talks about this process of stopping people from giving you their monkeys, and salespeople specifically, and then putting it back on them and empowering them to succeed. And that's how you scale faster. That's how you create that's one of the ways you create productive sales teams.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure there's actually, looking at the list of people who are on the call, I think there's quite a few salespeople that might, or sales teams, managers and leaders that might go be Googling that book as we speak.
I hope you can
So,
still get it. Maybe you have to go directly to Ken Blanchard Leadership,
okay.
but it's where I don't see why they wouldn't have it still in print.
It's
It's
probably somewhere on Amazon, that magical place where you can find
right.
all the books,
Everything
right?
appears.
All right. Well, I just want to thank you so much, Daryl, for being here today and presenting to us. It was a fascinating session. I want to remind everybody that the session is recorded. I will get the recording out hopefully later on this afternoon to everybody if you'd like to go back and watch it. I'm also going to provide Daryl's information if you'd like to reach out to him or have some interest in connecting with him. And I also want to take again a moment to thank Regal Ideas for their support of today's webinar. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you for your time. Again, it was great to see you, and we really appreciate you coming and sharing your great sales and leadership tips to our members.
My pleasure. I think if people apply one or two of the principles today, they're going to move forward. So great being with everyone. Jess, thanks for having me again.
Okay, take care. Bye.